Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to AI, Investigating Inner Strength Coaching with Pat Boone, the show where thought-provoking questions take center stage. I'm your host, Pat Boone, and with this podcast, we turn the spotlight in a unique direction. It's not about the guests, it's about the questions themselves and who's asking them. In each episode, we dive deep into the world of cultivating inner strengths. And guiding us through this journey is none other than our trusty companion, the master of inquiries, ChatGPT. So dear listeners, get ready for an enlightening exploration of the questions that spark curiosity, ignite introspection, and unveil the profound. Welcome to AI with your host, Pat Boone, and our inquisitive partner, ChatGPT. Our questions today explore my background and the foundation of my coaching practice. We dive into my experiences and general strategies that uncover the keys to building resilience, enhancing communication, and achieving personal growth. Let's get started with today's conversation.
Hello, Pat. It's a pleasure to join you today. I'm ChatGPT, here to facilitate our insightful conversation. Let's dive into our podcast episode and explore the world of inner strength coaching. To start off, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your background as a coach who focuses on cultivating the inner strengths of husbands, fathers, and providers?
Actually, my story starts 30 years ago when I was working for an accountant when I was finishing up my university, and went downstairs to take a break, and the building that we were in had a little convenience store on the bottom of it, and so I went downstairs and grabbed the pop and a bag of chips for a treat, and I just stood there staring at the building and dreaming about holding a course in one of the rooms that was just across our office, and didn't really know at the time what it was that I'd be teaching. I just thought that I'd be teaching life skills. Fast forward a few years, married, and I have a couple of boys, and I took parenting extremely seriously, and as all parents do, I'm sure. I was scared. I mean, I had 2 lives in my hands, 3 including my wife. As I believe it's my responsibility to provide and protect my family. But I had 2 lives that I was responsible for shaping. So my first reaction was to pray for the wisdom to raise my sons. And, God honored that. I mean, looking back now, both my boys are fathers themselves, just love their family, love their kids, and contributors to society. And I realized, as I coached hockey, that not everybody has the same opportunities. And, I work with a lot of different kids from different backgrounds, and you see, the things that they deal with and how it impacts their lives. And it actually, after my boys grew up and out of the house, were grown up and were out of the house, you struggle a little bit with, what are you going to do now? How are you going to impact the world now? And hockey coaching was over, and I actually tried coaching hockey again, but it just wasn't the same. It wasn't the same not having my boys there, but I could say I tried it. But I'm a lifelong learner, and I've wanted to, excel at whatever it was that I was doing in my work and my hobbies and in my home life. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect, far from perfect, but a few years ago I was at a friend's place, and their daughter had her boyfriend over, and they were going through a rough time, but they both had a baby, and the baby was staying with my friend's place with her mother. And when the boyfriend was getting ready to leave, as he was going out the door, he just kind of stopped at the door and looked back in, and you could just see the pain in his eyes, and he did not want to leave, but he just looked lost, and I knew right then that I needed to help these young men coming up who maybe didn't have the same opportunities that I was able to provide for my son. And so that's where my idea, I guess that's where my focus has come from, is seeing that pain and just thinking back through the kids that I coached, and knowing that all kids all humans have an ability. They have some inner strength that is just waiting to be released, and I know that I can help bring that out through just in a large part just being me and being curious and wanting to understand people and want the best for them.
What inspired you to specialize in coaching men in these specific roles, and why do you believe it's important to nurture their inner strengths?
As I mentioned, the big motivator for me just recently was the story that I just shared about my friend's daughter's boyfriend. That was a huge. It actually brought tears to my eyes in that particular moment. Luckily, the house was dark at the time, so nobody could see it. But that really hit home when I saw that. And I hate to see men and women in pain, but I know a lot of men out there need help, and especially a lot of young men out there need help. And I know there's the kids coming up today, they don't have the same challenges early on in life, so those challenges come later in life, and they're not as prepared as they could be to deal with those challenges. And so it's important for them to understand that challenges are a part of life, and that they have the inner strength within them to deal with those challenges. They just may need a little help to bring those inner strengths out so they can work through those challenges.
In your experience, what are some of the most common challenges that husbands, fathers, and providers face in today's world, and how can they begin to overcome them?
Oh my, some of the common challenges that husbands or fathers or providers face. There's so many. I guess the biggest one for me that I'm seeing is disrespect. There's a lot of disrespect, and there's a lot of animosity towards men, and I think everybody's just trying to find their place in the world and find their place in the relationship. And there's a lot of overcoming tradition, overcoming the traditional men, the traditional roles with a husband and wife, and I think the pendulum's kind of swung in a lot of cases, swung farther the other way, and we need to bring that back in the middle. But in the meantime, until that happens, we need to help the men, help the husbands and fathers and providers to deal with that disrespect and manage themselves as a person and help them manage the household. So disrespect, I guess, is a large one. Cost of living is a huge issue. The cost of raising a family, the cost of running a household. And so helping husbands, fathers, providers to increase their value and better manage their money that they do earn, and set some goals and help them to achieve those goals, I think are all part of overcoming those challenges. At the end of the day, I guess the big challenge here is I think men are just trying to find their place in general. The answer was easier, 20, 30 years ago. Men, quote unquote, had their place and they knew what they were responsible for. And now a lot of it's up in the air. And so I think a lot of men are really struggling with that. And so I think I can help them, find a spouse that is compatible with them, and help them to choose the right spouse and choose the right spouse for them, and to help them together to manage a more successful household.
Could you define what you mean by inner strengths in the context of your coaching, and why they are crucial for these roles?
Typically, when you think of inner strengths, it's mental toughness, or some puffy saying about being tough and overcoming challenges and so forth. But I'm actually going to rely on the science on this one, and I actually participated in a character strength test where it's a company called Via Institute on Character, and they have 24 character strengths that they measure, and that you take this test, you determine what those inner strengths are, and then you can come up with a plan to actually work on those inner strengths. So what I have found in my own experience, is, in particular, one of the inner strengths that I struggle with is perseverance. I'm I like to chase the shiny metal object, and I end up not completing things that I need to complete, and so that's one of the inner strengths that has been identified, it's like psychologically, and so there's some things that I can do and that I am doing to help improve that inner strength. So there's, as a man, men like to have things spelled out for them and clearly communicated, and so you can't be more clear by listing these 24 strengths, taking the test, and seeing where you are naturally strong and where you are naturally not as strong, and work within improving those the inner strengths that may be a little bit lower, and actually using the inner strengths that come more naturally to you, using them more effectively or more efficiently.
Balancing the roles of husband, father, and provider can be challenging. How do you help your clients find equilibrium and manage their responsibilities effectively?
Well, to help find equilibrium, and I'm a huge believer in finding equilibrium in all aspects of life. And I mean, even biblically, the in Ecclesiastes, it talks about not letting go of one and grasping the other. And the successful man is the one who, or woman, is the one who grasps one but doesn't let go of the other, and finds that balance. And so finding that equilibrium, I personally believe is key. Not easy, especially as you're as a young man. It's a little harder. I mean, when you're younger, you give a lot of yourself, and so you find yourself more tired, and maybe you don't feel as appreciated as you feel you should be. But if you take into consideration perseverance, and I mean, I struggle with this. My marriage almost broke up because I didn't persevere, and I mean, you could argue that we had to go through that, but there's definitely better ways. I wouldn't recommend what we went through, but what we have through that process are learning to communicate better. And so I think one of the key aspects to finding that equilibrium is, especially in a marriage. Well, I mean, in a marriage and on your job, and in your life. I mean, it's communication. It's being able to communicate and negotiate, and there's always a give and take, and sometimes you just got to swallow whatever life throws at you, and it's not going to be you're not going to be able to find that equilibrium all the time. And in fact, when I was younger, it was a lot harder because there's a lot of demands for your time and for your love and for your money, for everything. And so I can say with perseverance, and even though it was a true partnership with my wife, it was worth it. It was worth the work. It was worth losing my balance when I'm younger, and to find more of a balance as time went on, and it's paying off.
Many men may neglect self-care while juggling these roles. How do you emphasize the importance of self-care and help your clients incorporate it into their lives?
Self-care is crucial, and so it's going to be very important for, especially for the husband and wife, to balance that self-care and to take care of each other. So in order for me to do some self-care, it's going to be a burden on my wife to take over some of the duties until I can get back on track, and then I can take over for her when she needs to have some self-care time. So the emphasis is truly between a husband and wife, and it's required, and you both need to be on board, whatever that is in terms of how you make it work within your relationship, and every relationship is different. So, but it's absolutely important for the husband and wife to be to take that self-care and to help each other out when one partner, and sometimes the partner doesn't realize that they need a little bit of self-care time. They need a little bit of time to themselves, or to go out and with friends or whatever. And I think that's important for the spouse to pick up on, and just kind of say, your behavior's a little off. If you want to go shopping, or if you want to go out to the garden, or go read a book or whatever that is. Go for it. I'll take care of the kids, or I'll take the kids out, or whatever that is. Sometimes having a caring partner plays a huge part in getting that self care that you need.
Effective communication is key in any relationship. What strategies do you teach to improve communication between husbands and wives, or fathers and children?
I think one of the first strategies I think we need to teach, and what I teach men is setting boundaries. It relates back to the disrespect, and I hear so many stories of men being disrespected by their spouse, and men being disrespected by their spouse in front of the kids, which is that's not good for the relationship, and it's not good for the kids, because you're teaching them all sorts of things by doing that. So setting boundaries, and what is acceptable behavior in the relationship, what is not acceptable behavior, having the conversation, and getting that established early on. And if you're already dealing with it, then you need to set aside some time with your spouse to set those boundaries and set some rules in place for having those tougher conversations, and not losing your cool, which actually leads me to another important aspect of communicating, is managing your emotions and being able to step back if needed, as a conversation escalates. Being able to step back, take a break, think through the things you want to say and the points that need to be made, and then come back and have a more calm conversation. Because that also teaches kids how to deal with challenges and communication in a relationship. So not only are you harming by yelling and screaming in front of your child, by stepping back and coming back and then having that conversation, totally turns a 180 of the example that you're setting for your child. So setting boundaries and managing your emotions, I'd say, are the two keys to improving communication between husbands and wives.
As a coach, you likely serve as a role model for your clients. Can you share any personal experiences or examples of how you've cultivated your own inner strengths in these roles?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Can I share any personal experiences of how I cultivated my own inner strengths? Well, as I mentioned earlier in the interview, I prayed. I prayed for the wisdom, to which is related to an inner strength. I prayed for the wisdom to raise my sons, and so prayer is absolutely key for me. It was for me, at least, anyways, and being a believer in Christ. Can't say I'm perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I've made my share of mistakes, but that was one area where I was, I'd say, the most afraid, prayed the most about, and God absolutely gave me the wisdom and knowledge to raise my sons. I mentioned earlier about the one of my weaknesses is perseverance, but I take a look at when I was first starting out in my career. I had a very rocky relationship with with the company I was working for at the time, and a lot of ups and downs, and things would go badly, and I'd try to find something else, and then I'd find something else and go to my boss, and then he'd meet me halfway, and so there was a lot of ups and downs. And when I finally left there, and it was actually we'll say 7 years, but I had left for a period of time, ran my own business, and then went back. But I made a deal with myself that from that point forward, instead of quitting, I would do everything in my power that I could think of to deal with whatever was going on between me and the organization. And so it was a conscious choice for me to stick to it and try to deal with the issues. And of course, when you're younger, you don't have the skills, you don't have the finesse to have the conversations that you need to have. And I mean, even at 50, I've had conversations that still tough. They're still tough to have even now. Going through, after 25, 30 years in the workforce, you're still having tough conversations. But I still, after 20 years after leaving my first role, I have stuck to it. I've stuck to trying to deal with in whatever way I can to deal with the issues instead of just getting up and leaving.
How do you help your clients build resilience, especially when they encounter tough times in their marriages, parenting, or career?
Building resilience is, for me, it is about belief. It's what you believe about yourself. It's what you believe, what your worldview is. And I think those are the two things that really come into play. And I think also, I will say also what you believe about people. And, sometimes in our personalities, we're kind of programmed to think a certain way about other people. Sometimes they're after us. Sometimes they don't like us. They're rejecting us, and that's not true. But that's what we proceed from, and so we behave accordingly. The thing is we can't read minds, and it's probably a good thing that we can't read minds, whether it's with our spouse or kids or our boss or coworkers. But what I do to help my clients build resilience is to change what they believe about themselves, about the world around them, their people around them, and that's, I think, what helps build that resilience to work through more challenges.
Do you encourage your clients to seek support or build a community of like-minded individuals?
Yeah, I agree. It is so important to have a support network, and building that community of like-minded individuals, and it's so important. And when you're younger, sometimes that can be a little bit easier. For instance, when I was younger, I played hockey, so I had a team of fairly like-minded teammates, and laugh and joke and kind of release, and and even there's even one or two guys there you can kind of talk about some deeper things, and so very much a bit of a support network, from kind of releasing your frustrations with sports, but doing it in a team. So that's one thing. Church is another example of finding some people who are like you, who but not only, I guess, not even, it doesn't have to be that they're like you, because they could challenge you, but they love you. And what I mean by love is not intimate love, but they love you as a human, they love you as a person, and they want the best for you. And I think that's important to have as a support network for when you have those tough times to deal, when you're dealing with marriage. A lot of the people that I tended to hang out with, and my boys are telling me the same thing, the folks are a little bit older, or a fair bit older. So for us, my wife and I both actually, having some older, wiser individuals to hang out with has been a blessing for us. So definitely a good support network would be beneficial, and especially if the individuals can challenge you and not just back up everything you say and take your side, because sometimes you don't see things from the right perspective. You're seeing them you're blinded maybe a little bit. So having that a good support network of individuals who can mentor you is crucial to your success.
Looking ahead, what are your goals and aspirations for your coaching practice, and what impact do you hope to have on the lives of the men you work with?
Goals and aspiration for my coaching practice, I just want to help people. One of the biggest impacts that I would love to have is actually not in this world. I mean, it's in eternity. Someone tapping me on the shoulder and say, "Thank you so much for what you did on Earth, because I'm here because of you." And that's just the most important thing to me. Is yes, I'd love to have guys who I've helped here on Earth, and that's absolutely a goal for me. But the goal of helping them reach eternity, and in a good way, is a huge goal for me, and it's something that's on my heart and on my mind quite often.
For our listeners who may be husbands, fathers, or providers looking to enhance their inner strengths, what advice or tips would you offer them as a starting point?
You got to make the choice. You got to make the choice to want to improve, and to recognize that what you've done up to this point although it's got you to where you are, if you are seeking to improve, there's obviously something that's holding you back. So understanding that what you have done to get you here will not get you where you want to go. So it's making a conscious choice to want to change. Second is to learn about yourself. Sun Tzu talks about knowing your enemy and yourself, and you won't fear the outcomes of 100 battles, is so true. So understanding yourself and using some tools to understand yourself and understanding your enemy, what is holding you back from enhancing your inner strengths is crucial. And so being able to accept advice and accept an objective opinion or an objective perspective it will go a long way into helping to enhance your inner strength.
Closing remarks. As we wrap up our conversation, is there any final message or takeaway you'd like to leave with our audience, particularly for those who resonate with your coaching approach?
If there is one message that I want my listeners to take away from this, is that there's always hope. There's always hope. And you just need to choose to grasp on to that hope, whether it's in this world or in the next world. Just know that there's hope.